and I hope you've had a joyful day. I know that this is a great way to start the new year. Kick it off with a conversation about joy and what makes us joyful, what we hold in our hearts and our practices and our mind about how to live in a world that often seems incomprehensible. So I wanted to talk about our practice a little bit, about the Four Noble Truths, and how it is about, for me, it's about transformation and liberation. And it's about finding peace and happiness in a world that is racked with pain and suffering. I'm beginning to know that through our practice there is a way out. And it's simple. We have to do four things. We have to acknowledge that there is suffering. We have to understand the causes of our suffering. We can recognize that we don't have to suffer, and we can discover ways of arousing well-being in our lives. So these four truths have given me inspiration and hope. The last few times we've gathered, we've talked about dwelling in two of the four immeasurable minds. The mind of love, Maitri, and the mind of compassion, Karuna. These abodes are each a dwelling place of true love. But what makes these four abodes immeasurable? It is the effort in each moment of practice, of mindfulness, concentration, and meditation on the qualities of love, compassion, and today we'll talk about joy. These abodes and this practice grows to embrace and encompass the whole world. I think one of the most important aspects of love and compassion is that learning that you needn't suffer in order to offer relief and transform another's sorrows or even your own suffering. Last time I used the example of a doctor who can offer a cure without taking on the illness of the patient. My other takeaway is that we have to do the work to understand our own suffering. Through mindfulness and concentration, we gain the insight to overcome the negative seeds of judgment and the habit energies that keep us from thinking or doing acts of loving kindness. The work is to continue to be aware of how wrong perceptions give rise to fear, anger, and suspicion. Now, what does all this have to do with joy? Well, it's simply reminding us about what I needed to remind myself what I'm doing. And why I'm practicing, and how far I've come in my own understanding of the practice. And I was thinking about, I don't know if some of you may know that I was given a name when I took the 5 mindfulness trainings in 2019. And my name is the clearest joy of the source. Well, I think of this name as aspirational. And I have to think of it, what does it mean to be clear? What does it mean to be joy? To be joy. And what is the source of that joy? So it's been quite an interesting journey. So I had to ask myself, well, what is joy? I don't even know if I know what joy is. And so Is it a feeling? Is it a concept? Where is it? Where can I find it? What does it mean? How do we give rise to joy? So as I was reading in the heart of the Buddhist teachings and some other literature on the subject, according to Buddhist thinking, and joy is a dwelling place. So it is an abode. And it's a place where we live all the time. And it can be immeasurable if we know how to access it. What a concept to think that we live in joy. It's like living in the ocean, an ocean of joy. How simple is that? And yet how hard is it sometimes to feel it, to express it, and to enjoy it. One of the things that Thich talks about is how it can create harmony between ourselves and nature, and between our own joy and the joy of others. From our willingness to get in touch with the source of understanding and compassion, so that our actions will naturally protect life and not cause harm. This is joy, I think. As I understand it, joy is an act of creation. It is a fulfillment of my imagination. We're told that joy contains happiness and happiness contains joy. They are not separate unto themselves, but each does come from a different place in our psyche and in our emotional response. Thich describes it, which I like this definition. Thich describes it as someone who walks in the desert and, seeing the oasis, knowing that it is there, this awareness brings the person joy. It's a concept and a mental formation. But when the person gets to the oasis itself and drinks of the water, he quenches his thirst, and that makes the person happy. His emotional response is happiness at having drunk from the water, from the well. In my own experience, there's a real relationship between my joy and my happiness, and perhaps we can talk about this in our Dharma share. I'm thinking that the keys here to the relationship between joy and my happiness are acceptance and gratitude, to not be continually pressured by time. My journey of serenity, of peace and contentment is endless. Over the years, it has been a welcome discovery to realize that as I seek serenity, my joy may come from my own soul-satisfying sense of well-being, and a delight in seeing the contentment of others. I had never thought about those things as being important. I'd always been rather selfish and self-centered and self-absorbed. So why would I think that seeing joy in others was worthwhile object? But as I've come to learn how joyful that can be, to see another's contentment, I have come to believe that I found joy in thinking of sitting in the sun to eat lunch, and then actually allowing myself to do it. I find that makes me happy. So I give myself permission to, first of all, think about something that would bring me joy, and then I actually do it. and that is my happiness. I've found joy in looking for a recipe that I'll make, and I'm so happy when the meal is well received. I've found joy in knowing that nothing lasts forever, and found happiness in accepting change. In all of these, I have used and accessed the surrounding joy that is in my life. And with my mind and my happiness, it has caused me to take action that will only increase and enhance my joy. I was reading on the internet, and it talked about an example here of supposing that somebody wins $10,000 in the lottery. And supposing that, on the other hand, somebody doesn't win money, but he makes $10,000 by his own initiative and hard work. What do you think would be happiness, and what do you think would be joy? According to this example, the idea was that the person who, through his own initiative, made $10,000 experienced the feeling of joy, the joy and satisfaction of having created something worthwhile. Whereas the person who won the lottery would merely experience happiness that he had more money in his pocket. So that act of creation, the ultimate benefit for both people is that they are $10,000 richer. But it's the final emotion that they experience which is the important distinction. Happiness does not exclude joy, and joy does not exclude happiness, as far as I'm concerned. You may have a different idea. Everything requires effort. It is a practice. And in the art of the practice of the Eightfold Path, we should find joy. There was a monk, I'm reading from a story on page 100 in the book, The Heart of the Buddhist Teaching. There was a monk in the Tang dynasty who was practicing sitting meditation very hard day and night. He thought he was practicing harder than anyone else, and he was very proud of this. He sat like a rock day and night, but his suffering was not transformed. One day, a teacher asked him, "Why are you sitting so hard?" And the monk replied, "To become a Buddha." The teacher picked up a tile and began polishing it, and the monk asked, "Teacher, what are you doing?" His master replied, "I'm making a mirror." The monk asked, "How can you make a tile into a mirror?" And his teacher replied, "How can you become a Buddha? By sitting." To me, this brings up all of the practices of the Eightfold Path, right speech, right diligence, and the many other ways that we can observe our practice. And Thich says that if you're not finding joy or transformation in your practice, as this monk was not finding joy or transformation, you're not practicing correctly. So this monk was not practicing correctly. And Thich points out that to be joyful, we must not force ourselves to do things we cannot do, or to do things that we don't see the benefit in. And it takes time to become aware of exactly how much we can benefit from the practice. At first, I started out at first wanting to be a Buddha, quote unquote. But I'm discovering that it's much more important to be the person who is attracted and drawn to the study and drawn to the work, rather than to force myself to do something that may not resonate with me at the moment. So I find that this is an ever deepening practice, and I'm becoming much more comfortable with allowing myself to swim in the ocean of joy. That I can dream a little bit. I can use my imagination. I can do the things that I might not have given myself permission to do. And those are the things that finally help me to feel joyful and to experience the happiness that is available to me and to those that I'm in connection to, relationship to. So I hope that that gives you something to think about. I hope that it gives you something to carry forward in your own practice. I would like to open the floor up to whatever conversation, to the Dharma share, to what's in your heart and what's in your own experience of joy, or what you might think about the difference between joy and happiness, or maybe suggest ways in which you nourish joy in yourself and in others. This is Lynn, bowing out.